Praise be Jesus Christ and Mary Immaculate. Welcome to this 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time. We're going to read from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, verses 1 through 8. And with this Gospel reading, Jesus concludes the long teaching about faith that began in chapter 17 when it was brought to him a request brought by the disciples for the Lord to increase their faith. And as we've already spoken about, faith does not depend on God, nor does it come from God. Faith is not something that God can just dish out and give away as God pleases. That God gives lots of faith to some and no faith to others. That would be prejudice on the side of God. But faith is actually the human response to God's action in our life. The more open I am to God acting in my life, the more my faith increases. You want an example of what faith looks like? Remember the leper that was cleansed and came back to thank God. 10 were cleansed, but only one of them came back to thank God. He responded to the action of God in his life. And then Jesus says, go, your faith has saved you. So faith is our response to the action of God in our lives. And Jesus continues this parable. And he says, actually, Jesus told his disciples a parable, the same disciples that requested an increase of faith. Told them this parable about the necessity for them to pray always without becoming weary. What's interesting is that this parable has nothing to do with prayer. Doesn't speak about prayer and it has the subject of prayer. Jesus has already spoken at length in chapter 12 about prayer. What this parable is about seeking justice, believing that the justice of God will come forth, that the justice of God will happen in our lives, that justice in society will happen, is because justice is at the center. As a matter of fact, the word justice appears in this parable a good 4 times. The word prayer doesn't appear any time. And he says, there was a judge in a certain town who neither feared God nor respected any human being. Now, this didn't fear God. This tells us that this judge was most likely not a Jewish person, but this was a judge appointed by the governor or by the prefect of that place. And usually these people were ruthless because they didn't care about morals. They weren't religious. All they cared about was the bribes. So their decisions were based on the bribes that they received. So this man didn't fear God. You notice here the word God appears twice, but never the word Father. And this gives us the clue that this parable is not about prayer, because Jesus taught us that when we pray to our Father, that we pray to God as Father. And here the word Father never appears. And also talks about a widow. And a widow, as we know, widow, orphans, and foreigners were amongst the most marginalized people in that society. And widows who did not have a husband or a son were really left out to fend for themselves. Widows were not allowed to receive the inheritance of their dead husbands. Women were not allowed to keep the property of their deceased husbands. Those properties would go to the brothers of the husband or to the male sons of the husband, but not to the woman. So a widow was really a person that was left out to beg, to fend for herself, and depended on the kindness of her friends and her family. And this widow is coming to this judge and looking for justice. No, she would come to him and say, render justice for me. And this is the first time that justice is mentioned. Render justice for me against my adversary. Do justice for me. And for a long time, the judge was unwilling, but eventually he thought, while it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, these are the attitudes of the powerful, of the rich, even today. Because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver justice for her. I shall deliver justice for her. So this is the second time we hear justice. And this is a funny phrase. Lest she finally come and she strikes me. The Greek word for the word strikes me actually means lest she comes and she gives me a black eye. And maybe it doesn't mean that the woman was going to come and physically hit the judge and give him a black eye, but the expression "give me a black eye" means she's going to ruin my reputation. She's going to come and she's going to mark me forever. And then the story continues. Will not, the Lord said, pay attention to what the dishonest judge says. Will not God then secure the rights of his chosen ones? Will not God do justice for his ones? No? Who call him out day and night? And the question here is, what Jesus is saying is, how much more will the Father do justice for us, even when we don't have to beg him, we don't have to ask him, we don't have to keep pestering him, we don't have to keep going to him like this widow does with this judge, because God is not like this judge. God is not an unjust person. God is a Father that cares for us, that knows our needs before we express them. And so therefore we come with God with confidence, not begging for anything. Who call out day and night for him. This expression, who call out day and night for him, Luke borrows it from Psalm 22 and from Psalm 42. And both of them speak about this anguish that people feel. In Psalm 22 we read, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you far? But in you I put my trust. In you they trusted, and you did not put them to shame. Meaning God is with us. And in Psalm 42 we read, put your hope in God. No, we put our hope in God. So this is what they claim out. This is what people call out to God day and night. That yes, we may be going through a tough time, but we know that you're going to come through. And then Jesus says, I tell you, he will see it, that justice, this is the fourth time now, that justice is done for them speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? When is this time? When is the Son of Man coming? Jesus says this to us in just a few chapters before, when he teaches that at the destruction of the temple, when the temple in Jerusalem is no longer there, then they will see the Son of Man come. And here's what's interesting, that the request to increase the faith came from the disciples. And now in the end, Jesus asked the question, will you hold on to that little bit of faith that you have? You want more faith, but will you hold on to the faith that you have? Even if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, Jesus says, you can do powerful things. The question is, will you hold on to that faith? Will you persevere in the midst of the struggles that you may go through in this world? Questions for reflection for us. How much do we persevere in our quest for justice? How do I react to God not responding to my prayers as fast as I may want God to do so? And how do I keep my faith, even if it's the size of a mustard seed, active and growing while I'm participating in bringing justice to our world? God bless you.